Hi everybody, this is Rich Cedarberg in Albuquerque, New Mexico, back again this week with another real estate hangout. I'm joined by Lori Cain in Tulsa, Oklahoma, Brian Robertson in Silicon Valley, California, and Jeff Dollar outside of San Diego. This is our last of three hangouts with our special guest from Vancouver, British Columbia, Sally Weatherly. So thanks, Sally, for joining us once again.
Thank you.
All right, great. Let's just dive on in. Today we're talking about staging a vacant home and maybe how that's a little bit different than staging one that's already occupied. So let's go ahead and fire away with some questions.
Sally, I've been out looking at model homes quite a bit in the last few days, and it occurred to me that home builders have been doing this for years, and so staging is not a new concept. Maybe you could talk about that relevant to our topic of using staging for a vacant home to make it show properly.
Absolutely, Jeff. Builders know that 90% of the population can't envision how a space can look if it were furnished and it were lived in. They're looking at an empty box. I think that builders also know that you can't just, they've got all these complexes that they have to sell, and they can't just show a person a floor plan or an empty room and say, this is where you should be living. This is where your dream is. No, they know that that's not going to work. They know that they have to merchandise. They have to sell their properties. They've got a lot of money invested in it, and so it really makes sense. They have figured out over the years that by furnishing and accessorizing a space, it's going to sell 80% faster than a vacant property. And that's all I have to say on that.
Well, okay, so I'll follow that up real quick. So vacant properties, and builders are one angle. Of course, agents, those of us who get a listing, obviously have to address it on our side. I've seen a lot of photos in the MLS where an agent will have a vacant listing, and all he does is take pictures of an empty kitchen or an empty living room. And the living room's the worst because it's just this big old plain room. And the impression made on the buyers is kind of like, okay, what am I supposed to do with this space? What advice would you give to an agent who has a vacant listing in terms of marketing that into the internet?
Well, first of all, we're all human beings. So you're looking at the internet and you're looking at a beige box, basically, 4 walls, nothing on it. What emotions are your buyers going to feel? They're going to feel like the room is looking cold, lifeless, boring. You really need to add the furniture and add the pizzazz. You want to draw people to the property. Especially, when they're looking on the internet on the MLS, they could have been looking at a staged home before. They click to the next home. Wow, that's a really nice staged home too, or it's a really nicely presented home. Then they click over to your vacant property. Do you think they're going to spend much time looking at that and going, wow? No. In the seconds, they're going to be clicking to the next photo. So it is imperative that a vacant home be staged for sale. Absolutely.
Well, I would like to share a success story that I have on staging a vacant home, Sally, and see if you have had similar results. I had a listing that was on the market for 3 months, and we had gotten no offers. It was not overpriced. It was a beautiful home. So we took it off the market, and we had the home staged, professionally staged. The buyers that put an offer on it had walked through the home when it was vacant. The wife liked it. The husband absolutely hated it and said it did not make their top list at all. So when she saw the photos of the staged home, she showed the photos to her husband, and he said, oh my gosh, we have to go look at that house right away. And they literally flew in from another state, looked at the home, and put an offer on it. And it just amazes me that they couldn't envision what it could be when it was vacant, but just the internet photos of the staged home and walking through the staged home, they wrote an offer immediately.
And that is a classic example. That's exactly what happens. And thanks for sharing that story, Lori, because another thing that we can do with a vacant property is we can prove that perhaps people walk in, they look at a vacant, and they go, oh no, my bed's too big for this room. It absolutely won't fit. Well, if we bring in the furniture, if we bring in the bed, we can prove, yes, a queen size bed does fit, and hey, 2 side tables too. It's seeing is believing. And people really have a problem with envisioning a space. Another thing we can do is we can actually add money to the table. We've gone into condos where there's been a storage room, or they call it a flex space. Well, if you're looking at that as a vacant, you see a closet. We come in and we stage that as a little office, with a little table, a laptop, a lamp. Suddenly, that adds square footage to the space. And in our city where condos are getting smaller and smaller, and there's very little square footage, you have to maximize every little space that you can. And another thing that we can do as stagers is often an architect will get all creative, and they'll have some wacky floor plan. I've staged a condo where the windows jutted out like a triangle, but the fireplace was at a different angle, and you're looking at that going, where does my couch? How do I position my couch? And do you think buyers are going to take a lot of time to think about that? They're going to go, no, next. There's just too much choice out there. So you have to, again, bring in the sofa, prove that, look, this is the best way that this sofa can fit in this space, and suddenly it's like, wow, that's really unique. This is really appealing. Yes, I want to buy it. Another thing that we do as stagers is we create. You're starting with a blank canvas, so we create a story. I'll drive around the area and I'll go, well, who would live here? And often there's something like a cute little cafe. I did a condo where there's this really shishi cafe or grocery store called Urban Fare, very local to that area. And so I don't know if you can see this, but I bought this little coffee container that says, it's got the label Urban Fare on it. It's subliminal, sure, but if they go into the kitchen and they see that label, it triggers, wow, yeah, that I can walk to there. This is a cool area. It's just playing with the mind, but also, proving that spaces can work as well.
Yeah, and I think that's, going back to your previous point, I think that's really great, because buyers are really looking to disqualify properties, not more than they are, I think, that, is this my dream home or not? That's a really tough question, but it's easy to disqualify a property. So if you've got a place with weird angles or rooms that are small, Sally, yeah, I think staging just, removes an objection for the realtor too, makes it, and for the seller. So I just want to take a quick second and say, Sally, thank you so much for joining us in all 3 of these Hangouts. I think we'd love to have you come back again in the future if you're willing. Will you come back in another month or so?
I'd absolutely love to. Thank you so much for asking me.
Okay, great. So everybody check back with us next week. We'll have another brief real estate hangout, and everybody have a great day.